Hey there, movie fans. Welcome back to Fade to Fact. Today we're diving into one of the most iconic action films of the 1980s, Rambo: First Blood, 1982. While the Rambo series would later become known for over-the-top explosions, heavy weaponry, and larger-than-life battles, the very first film was something entirely different. It was smaller, grittier, and far more emotional than people often remember. At its heart, First Blood wasn't about endless combat, but about a troubled Vietnam veteran pushed to the edge by a small-town sheriff and his deputies. Released in the fall of 1982, the movie introduced audiences to John Rambo, a drifter carrying scars that weren't just physical, but deeply psychological. Sylvester Stallone, already famous thanks to Rocky, brought a surprisingly vulnerable performance to the role, balancing brute strength with quiet pain. The film struck a chord at a time when America was still dealing with the aftermath of the Vietnam War, and it turned Rambo into both a pop culture icon and a symbol of misunderstood veterans. But here's the thing. Behind the action, First Blood had a messy production history, shocking behind-the-scenes stories, and twists you probably never knew. So grab your survival knife, tie on that red headband, and let's break down 20 things you never knew about Rambo: First Blood. 1. The novel was much darker. First Blood began life as a 1972 novel by David Morrell, and the story on the page was much harsher than what audiences saw on screen. In the book, Rambo wages a one-man war, killing dozens of people in cold blood and ultimately dying at the end. Hollywood executives worried this kind of nihilistic conclusion would alienate moviegoers, especially so soon after the Vietnam War. Stallone himself insisted that Rambo should be portrayed with humanity, as a broken soldier rather than just a ruthless killer. By softening the edges and giving him a tragic core, the film not only connected with audiences emotionally, but also left room to continue the character in future stories. 2. Rambo almost talked way more. It might surprise you, but early drafts of the script had Rambo delivering lengthy speeches about his wartime trauma and inner pain. Stallone quickly realized that this made the character feel too ordinary and diluted the aura of mystery. He personally cut much of his own dialogue, trimming it down to fewer than 400 words in the entire film. This near silence gave Rambo a stronger presence, forcing the audience to focus on his actions, his expressions, and his raw physicality. In a way, what Rambo didn't say became just as haunting as what he did, proving that sometimes silence can scream louder than words. 3. Stallone hated the first cut. When Stallone first sat down to watch the initial cut, he felt like his career might be over. The rough version ran nearly 3.5 hours, dragging on endlessly and portraying Rambo as unstable, violent, and completely unsympathetic. Stallone was horrified, even going so far as to beg the producers to let him buy the negative himself and destroy it before release. But cooler heads prevailed, and the movie was tightened into a lean 93 minutes of tension and action. That shorter edit not only salvaged the film, but transformed it into a gripping classic that audiences still revisit today. 4. The ending was almost different. The first version of the ending mirrored the book, with Rambo choosing to die rather than surrender. Stallone pushed back hard, arguing that people wanted to see the character live on, not end in despair. Test screenings confirmed his instincts. Audiences were left devastated by the suicide ending, with many calling it far too bleak. The studio reluctantly agreed to shoot an alternate conclusion where Rambo is arrested, giving him a chance to survive. That one change shifted the entire legacy of the character, setting the stage for sequels and turning Rambo into one of the most enduring action icons of all time. 5. Shooting in Canada, pretending it's Washington. Even though the story is set in Washington state, production actually took place in the small town of Hope, British Columbia. The misty mountains, dense forests, and chilly weather provided the perfect look for the film's rugged tone. Residents of Hope were fascinated by the Hollywood crew taking over their quiet town, with many extras and stand-ins drawn from the local community. Over time, the connection only grew stronger. The town now proudly embraces its place in cinema history, with Rambo-themed statues, annual fan events, and tours of filming sites. What began as a backdrop for a gritty action film became a permanent piece of pop culture geography. 6. Rambo's iconic knife was custom-made. The massive survival knife Rambo carries isn't just a prop. It was specially designed for the film by renowned knife maker Jimmy Lyle. The blade featured a hollow handle for storing fishing line, hooks, and even matches, making it a true survivalist tool. Stallone loved the knife so much that it became a defining element of the Rambo persona, carried into every sequel. Collectors today still hunt for replicas, and the knife's design has influenced countless survival gear products. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a statement of who Rambo was: resourceful, dangerous, and prepared for anything. 7. Stallone did his own dangerous stunts. While modern stars often rely heavily on stunt doubles, Stallone threw himself into the action for First Blood. He performed many of the dangerous sequences himself, including the terrifying cliff jump where Rambo crashes through tree branches. Stallone later admitted he cracked some ribs during that stunt, but insisted on keeping it in the movie for realism. His commitment gave the film a raw, physical edge, and audiences could feel the pain in every impact. That dedication helped cement Stallone's reputation as not just an actor, but a true action star willing to bleed for authenticity. 8. Brian Dennehy almost wasn't the sheriff. Brian Dennehy, who played Sheriff Teasel, delivered one of the best performances of his career as Rambo's relentless adversary, but he wasn't the studio's first choice. Other actors like Gene Hackman and Lee Marvin were considered before Dennehy won the part. His decision to play Teasel not as a cartoonish villain, but as a small-town cop with pride and flaws, gave the movie depth. Dennehy later said he wanted Teasel to feel like a man who believed he was in the right, not simply a bully. That complexity helped make the showdown between him and Rambo feel all the more compelling. 9. Richard Crenna saved the production. The role of Colonel Troutman was originally given to Kirk Douglas, who even came to set and prepared to shoot. But Douglas quit suddenly after clashing over the script, demanding an ending where Rambo dies. With filming already underway, the production scrambled to replace him. Richard Crenna stepped in at the last minute and completely owned the role, bringing calm authority and fatherly wisdom to the film. His performance balanced out Stallone's intensity and created one of the most memorable mentor characters in action cinema. Without Crenna, First Blood might not have worked nearly as well. 10. Real soldiers inspired the character. David Morrell, the author of the novel, admitted that he based Rambo on real Vietnam veterans he met in the early 1970s. Many of these men struggled with PTSD, alienation, and hostility from civilians when they returned home. Stallone connected deeply with this background and worked it into his portrayal, making Rambo feel like more than a generic action hero. His haunted eyes, quiet demeanor, and sudden bursts of violence reflected the inner turmoil of real veterans. This grounding in reality is a big reason why First Blood feels so different from the sequels. It's a character study wrapped in an action film. 11. The film sparked debate about PTSD. When First Blood hit theaters, many critics noted how it shined a light on the struggles of Vietnam veterans. Rambo's alienation, flashbacks, and inability to reintegrate into society mirrored real-life issues that the U.S. was still grappling with. Some veterans groups praised the movie for raising awareness, while others felt it oversimplified their experiences. Either way, the film started important conversations at a time when PTSD wasn't widely discussed. Decades later, the movie is still taught in film studies and psychology courses for how it portrays trauma on screen. 12. Hope. British Columbia became famous. The town of Hope, Canada, was forever changed by the production. Locals remember Stallone jogging through the streets, Dennehy chatting with townsfolk, and Hollywood trucks clogging up the small roads. After the movie's release, fans began flocking to Hope to see where it was filmed, and tourism has remained strong ever since. Today, the town has Rambo-themed festivals, statues, and even walking tours of filming sites. For many residents, being tied to such a legendary movie became a point of pride and an unexpected boost to their local economy. 13. The forest shoot was brutal. Filming in the cold, rainy forests of British Columbia took a toll on cast and crew. Stallone often worked in freezing temperatures while drenched in icy water, which made the survival sequences feel painfully real. Crew members reported constant mud, fog, and unpredictable weather that slowed production. But the harsh conditions paid off, giving the movie its bleak and gritty atmosphere. When you watch Rambo shivering in the woods, that's not acting. Stallone was really suffering. 14. Stallone was injured multiple times. In addition to cracked ribs from the cliff jump, Stallone endured several other injuries during filming. He bruised his back sliding down muddy slopes, cut his arm on rocks, and even needed stitches after one particularly rough fall. Instead of slowing down, Stallone insisted the cameras keep rolling, capturing his real pain on screen. The authenticity shines through. You can practically feel the strain on his body as he pushes through the wilderness. Stallone later joked that he left a piece of himself in those Canadian mountains. 15. The National Guard scene was played for satire. One of the movie's lighter moments comes when bumbling National Guard members corner Rambo in a mine. Their lack of preparation and comic panic provided a small break from the otherwise tense story. Interestingly, the actors playing the guardsmen were encouraged to exaggerate their incompetence for laughs. This contrast highlighted how dangerous Rambo was compared to ordinary people, while also poking fun at bureaucracy and authority. It was a rare moment of humor in an otherwise grim film, and audiences appreciated the breather. 16. Stallone rewrote the script himself. By the time Stallone came on board, the script had gone through countless rewrites by different writers. Stallone took it upon himself to rewrite much of the dialogue and reshape Rambo into a more sympathetic character. He stripped out excessive gore and softened Rambo's personality, making him someone audiences could root for. The final speech, where Rambo breaks down and sobs to Troutman, was largely Stallone's creation. That moment gave the film its emotional climax and reminded viewers that behind the violence was a broken man, not a monster. 17. The helicopter scene was extremely risky. The tense scene where Rambo hangs from a cliff while being attacked from a helicopter was shot practically, with Stallone performing much of the stunt himself. The sequence was filmed high above real rocks, with only minimal safety harnesses. Crew members were terrified that one wrong move could end in disaster. Stallone insisted on realism, arguing that audiences could spot fake shots instantly. The result was one of the film's most gripping sequences, showing just how far the production was willing to push physical danger for authenticity. 18. The police station breakout was choreographed like a war scene. When Rambo escapes from the police station, the chaos looks spontaneous, but it was carefully choreographed. Stallone worked with stunt coordinators to ensure every punch, throw, and baton swing felt brutal but believable. The confined space and frantic editing made the scene feel like a mini-war erupting inside the station. Actors later recalled being covered in bruises from repeated takes, but agreed the raw energy was worth it. That escape sequence set the tone for the rest of the film. Rambo wasn't just surviving, he was fighting back. 19. The final monologue almost didn't happen. One of the most powerful moments in the movie is Rambo's emotional breakdown to Troutman near the end. Stallone fought to keep the scene, even though some executives thought it slowed down the action. His argument was that audiences needed to see Rambo's humanity, to understand the depth of his pain and why he snapped. Stallone improvised parts of the speech, channeling real emotions he'd heard from Vietnam veterans. It turned what could have been just another action finale into a heartbreaking, unforgettable moment. 20. First Blood launched a global icon. When First Blood opened in 1982, few expected it to spawn a worldwide phenomenon. Made on a modest budget, the film earned over $125 million globally and turned Rambo into a household name. The character became a symbol of raw toughness, resilience, and misunderstood veterans, inspiring everything from sequels to cartoons to video games. Stallone went from being the underdog boxer in Rocky to one of the biggest action stars in the world. And it all started with a small, gritty film about a soldier who just wanted to be left alone. And there you have it. 20 things you never knew about Rambo. First Blood. What started as a modest action thriller quickly became the foundation of one of cinema's most legendary franchises. Beyond the fights, explosions, and survival in the forest, this film told a story about trauma, alienation, and the heavy weight carried by veterans who returned home to a world that didn't understand them. Stallone's fearless commitment, the dangerous stunts, and that unforgettable emotional breakdown scene turned what could have been a standard action flick into something truly timeless. Even today, decades later, First Blood still resonates with audiences as both a gripping thriller and a window into history. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed uncovering the hidden stories behind this classic, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies you love. This is Fade to Fact, signing off, reminding you that sometimes the fiercest battles aren't fought on the battlefield, but within ourselves.